Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom and Tips, Tricks, and Triumphs Tuesday. So if this is your first time listening, I'm a hypnotherapist, an NLP practitioner, a Reiki master, and a life coach. But I like to call myself a change adventure navigator because I love guiding clients through obstacles and adversity to find their path, purpose, and peace. So before we get started today, I want to talk about something that has really been bugging me this week and literally bugging me because I have gotten so many mosquito bites every time I walk out of my house because we've been having a real true monsoon here in Arizona. The bugs are terrible. And in the last week, I've gotten like a dozen bites. And the night before last, I couldn't sleep because they were bothering me so much. And I really don't like to complain about things unless I'm also willing to do something about it. So I decided to look up things other than mosquito repellent and clothing that I could do to help not get bitten so much. So I guess there are some things that you can do as far as what you eat. And there's some controversy over whether this works or not, but I tend to think it does, since part of what mosquitoes are attracted to is smell. And I know that what you eat does have an effect on that. So here's some things that you can eat to help deter mosquitoes from biting you. And beans, lentils, and tomatoes. And the reason for that is the vitamin B1 or thiamine. Grapefruit, and that is because of the vitamin C and antioxidants. And garlic and onions. And that is because of a substance called allicin. And I guess mosquitoes just really don't like the way that smells. Apple cider vinegar. And then chili peppers, if you can tolerate them. And that's because of the capsaicin. And that's because of the heat-producing effect that has. And then there's lemongrass, and that contains citronella. So you can sip on lemongrass tea, and that would tend to, have mosquitoes avoid you a little more. None of these work completely, but I do think that some of them do help, because I used to take garlic tablets, odorless garlic tablets, and last year, I only got 3 mosquito bites, and that was because I went out at dusk and was talking to my neighbors, and I didn't know yet. Somebody had told me that there weren't any mosquitoes in Arizona, and I found out that wasn't true. And then the year before, I didn't get any, and the year before that, I got lots of them, and then I started taking the garlic tablets. So I stopped taking them because I sort of overdid it. And you've got to be careful because they do have an effect like antibiotics. But I'm going to start again and just try to be moderate instead of overdoing it. And there are some foods to avoid, and that would be beer, salty foods, and sweet foods. And that's because they produce lactic acid. And I guess mosquitoes really like that. So I am really excited about our show today. My guest is Terry Britt, and she is a former Miss USA, the former talk show host of Leading with Love on Contact Talk Radio, and she's the founder of Women Leaders of Love Global Community. She's a love expert, speaker, author, spiritual coach, and energetic healer. And she's been doing all of this for more than 2 decades. She's been inspiring women to break the good girl rules and raise their worthiness quotients for inner and outer abundance and to become women leaders. She's appeared on the Today Show, NBC, Fox, A Good Day Atlanta, just to name a few. So I'm really excited to introduce her now.
Hey, Kate.
Hi, Terry. How are you?
I'm great. And let me tell you, I was sitting here thinking when you're talking about the mosquitoes, I live in the Northeast Georgia mountains. Okay. If you could see out my window right now, it is just green mountains everywhere. So of course we have mosquitoes, and I'm thinking, well, I don't get many mosquito bites either. And now I'm wondering if it's the garlic, because I take garlic and I eat it. I can ward off vampires, okay? The vampires are not going to want me because I have lots of garlic. I love garlic.
I was taking the garlic tablets, and then I got sick, and I started taking more of them. And I actually got thrush, and I didn't know why, because when I went to the doctor, he said, well, are you taking any antibiotics? And I said, no. And then when I thought about it, garlic is a natural antibiotic, and I guess I just kind of overdid it.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that. Wow. Interesting. But thank you for having me here. I just thought that was a really interesting opening to share that information, because, boy, this is the time of year. It's hot and it's humid and rainy.
Yes.
I mean,
I did talk to somebody in a different part of the country who was also having a mosquito problem. So.
Yes. Well, thank you for that.
To start out with, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what led you to your current path?
Oh, it's such a long story. Let me see if I can put it in a nutshell. I was a kid who was always trying to win love. Okay. I remember at the age of 7 years old, sitting on my neighbor's front lawn. I'd gone over to see if anybody could play. There was no one home. There were no cars on the street. And I remember in that moment making a decision that I am all alone in this world. It was a very weird thought and decision to make at that young age. And so that became my filter, that I was alone. Well, who wants to be alone, right? I mean, nobody wants to be alone, especially as a child. So I found myself trying to always win love. It started with my dad, because he was the one who would say things like, you can be anything you want to be. And then my mother, who was very suppressed. Mom was the typical Southern belle who gave her power to her dad, especially from that time frame. I'm about to turn 60. So this was in the 60s and the 70s, right? So I found myself just constantly trying to win daddy's love, because that's where I felt like I got his approval. Well, he would say, you can be anything you want to be. And he would help me create these big visions for myself. Well, what did that mean? It meant that I had to work really hard and I had to get myself on that hamster wheel. So that's what I did in school. It was getting the best grades, being the president of this, the athlete. I mean, doing everything, the overachiever. Okay. I was being like daddy. I mean, very much that male energy. And what I found is, instead of, I won a lot of accolades. I got a lot of, I graduated second in my class in high school. I won a lot of people's applause. But yet every time I got it, I might feel the sense of, oh, this is wonderful. And then the next sense would be, I got to do it again. because it was an addiction, right? It was an addiction of wanting this love. And what happened is that addiction made me angry. It made me depressed. It made me feel as if I was never enough. So I, in spite of having it all in so many ways, it never felt that way on the inside. It was this sense of lack. And when I went to college, I followed my boyfriend because he was filling me up now, and it went from my dad to my boyfriend. So I followed him to a school that didn't have a broadcasting department, and yet I wanted to get into broadcasting. So I was very dysfunctional. I mean, everything was about looking for love out here. And I finally started getting so angry that I was trying to beat him up. I mean, nothing was filling me up. And then thankfully, in my second semester of my sophomore year, I was talking to a friend and told him how much I hated school because I was at a school that didn't feed my needs, right? And again, I was on that hamster wheel of trying to prove my worth and Dean's List, that whole thing, and scholarship. And my friend said, where are you going? And I said, well, I have to. And he says who? And in that moment, I made a decision. It was like, okay, I'm done. So I went to my family. I said, I can't do this anymore. I'll let go of my apartment. I let go of my apartment, moved in at home, got a job that was in February, I think. In March, it might have been late January. In March, I ran into a former Miss Arkansas. I decided to be in Miss Arkansas pageant because I thought it might be an opportunity to get out of Arkansas because the Miss Arkansas pageant had been bought by a production company. I thought, oh, maybe commercials, there's an opportunity. Well, I ended up winning Miss Arkansas. 2 weeks later, was shipped to Miss USA, and then won Miss USA when I talked about drinking beer and dipping skull in the back of a pickup truck. I mean, that's Bob Barker said, what do you do in Cabot, Arkansas on a Saturday night? And I said, well, Bob, in the winter we stay at home, but in the summer we go to Tasty Freeze, sit on the back of my friend's truck. Guys drink beer, dip a little skull. My friend plays the banjo, and it's a real good time. And then I won, and I had short brown hair. And so a seed was planted that night that said, when you stand in your truth and you follow your heart, miracles show up. But it took a long time for me to really capture that and understand it. It took years. It really took until I became a mom. And then I found myself putting those same old beliefs that you have to achieve. You have to be the best in school. I started putting those feelings onto my kids. And every time I did it, and there was this resistance, right? It was resistance with my kids, resistance with myself. And I finally said, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. And then my dad died in 95, and he died a broken man. He had lost everything in bankruptcy. And, he was my hero, right? I wanted to win his love and approval. And when he died, I got into therapy, and my therapist thankfully said, you need to get into meditation. You're wound really, really tight. So I did. And I went into meditation at a healing school, and my whole world opened up. And that was back in the mid-90s. So I learned about energy, how we project energy through our thoughts and our feelings, and really started allowing that to guide my life. And here's what was so cool. This is what I think I love most about my journey is I'll never forget in this healing school, our teacher said, you're going to meet your healing master. And you're going to go in meditation. You're going to call in your healing master. And then you're going to ask this energy its name. So I'm just following the guidance, and I see this energy come in because I was also working into being a clairvoyant. And this energy felt like it was a guy in a tuxedo with a crazy sense of humor. I mean, I was laughing watching him in my mind's eye. So I said, what is your name? He said, Michael. And I said, okay, because I wasn't into angels at that time. Well, at that same time, the movie Michael came out with John Travolta. Well, I kept going to see it. And my girlfriend, who was Catholic, who was in the healing school with me, she says, don't you find it interesting that you keep going to see a movie about Michael the Archangel and your healing master is Michael? And I went, oh, And so Michael became my best friend. And now, remember me saying that when I was 7 years old, I felt so alone. I no longer felt alone. And I was raised in religion. I was raised Southern Baptist, but I never felt like I had access to anyone on the other side. I didn't feel that I was worthy of of having that kind of love and support. Well, let me tell you, when Michael showed up, oh my gosh, it became this wild adventure, and then started opening up to other guides, and it's been magical. So to have that experience of feeling so much lack and being alone and not feeling loved, to feeling so loved and so adored and so protected and so connected, has been the greatest gift of this journey. And it's what has caused my anger and my judgment to go away, because as I have loved myself and opened up to connect, right, I feel peaceful. I'm trusting. And that, oh my gosh, is the biggest thing, right? It's to be able to
Yes.
trust, right?
Definitely. Well, I think you've described. Yeah, I think you've described the journey of a lot of women, really. So, this past year and a half and going forward has been like total chaos for all of us. How have you fared through COVID and the pandemic?
I actually can say I am more at peace in my being than I've ever been in my whole life. First off, when we shut down everything for that 6 weeks or so, it was the most joyful time for my hubby and me, because we have a coffee company that he's always working at. So we were cooking together, we were hiking together every day in the woods with our dogs. So when it was over, I was like, no, I want it to be over. I was like, this is so good. And then I started working on I have a new digital program called the Worthiness Quotient, Claim Your Crown, Lead a Life You Love. So I was working on that and just being creative, right? When I found myself getting what I call lit up by my outer world circumstances, whether it was division, whether it was politics, because there's been so much of it, right?
Yeah.
I used it as an opportunity to go within. I always see my outer world as a mirror to my inner world. And if I am reacting to anything, then I know that I have attracted it energetically into my life so that I can heal. And, most people think, well, it's happening to me, but I look at everything as, oh, thank you for the healing. I can see I've got a trigger here. It's time for me to go within. So my world is all about daily. Am I being triggered? And if I am, let's clean it up so that I can get to my truth. Because if I'm getting triggered, I'm not standing in my truth. There's something that is feeling suppressed, and so I look at it as that. And then also, how can I create? So it really comes first for me. What am I creating in my life? And of course, my whole mission is peace and joy and passion and playfulness, right? And so if I'm creating that, then what's getting in the way of it? So I pay attention to my outer world and let it take me into my inner world. And so that's what I've done, but that's what I always do. I've been doing that since the 90s when I got into that healing school. So it wasn't anything new for me, other than new triggers came up that I had not experienced before.
So, I know a lot of people probably wonder, what was it like being Miss USA?
Well, obviously it was a great honor. It was interesting. I was with this guy that I'd followed to college. We ended up breaking up. I thought I was going to marry him. I then met Wayne Newton, who at that time was like Mr. Las Vegas. We began dating. So I had these two lives going on as Miss USA. I had the one who got on a plane, flew into Fargo, North Dakota, got picked up in a stagecoach, went to J.C. Penney's, who was one of my sponsors. I think we did that in Fargo. I'm kind of mushing them together. And, sign 500 autographs, host a fashion show, get in the plane and go somewhere else, right? I mean, that was the job of Miss USA, which is very exhausting. And, you would think you'd get to see a lot, but you only see a little because you're getting on a plane and going somewhere, doing your job and leaving, just like somebody who sells pharmaceuticals, right? You don't really see the area. It's a job. The fun part was when I was dating Wayne, because I would zip off, he'd, send a plane for me or rent a plane for me, and I'd zip off in the middle of the night and go see him. for a couple of days and have getaways. And it was almost this clandestine thing because he was separated from his wife at that time when I met him, but they were not divorced. So the Miss Universe people had threatened to take my crown away if I saw him. So I was one of those queens.
Uh-oh.
But you know what was really interesting is vibrationally, like when I won Miss USA that night, I was excited. You know, if you saw pictures of me, my mouth was huge. Then there was a sense of emptiness going, is this it? And then the next sense was this sense of guilt because my boyfriend, who I said that I'd been with, I knew that I was leaving him behind and I was going to be shipped to New York because he was going to be left in Arkansas. So I had all this emotion. Well, also through that year, I suppressed myself. I suppressed my light to be within that relationship with Wayne. And in reality, we ended up busting up because he said I had too much fire because I would suppress, and then blow up, right? I mean, how many times do we do that as women? But by the end of the year, I felt like I was back to where I had started in the sense of financially, my dad had given all my money to invest. He lost all of it. And I had given my car to my sister because Wayne said, well, you'll have my cars. So now I didn't have that new car. It was just a weird thing. And now I understand why it happened vibrationally, because I didn't really feel worthy of receiving love, of being able to stand in my truth and receive. It was always about, what does this person need? What does that person need? And so at the end of the year, I was back to where I began. I mean, I literally moved to Los Angeles after that year and rented an Ugly Duckling rent-a-car that I mean, it was purple and it had dents all in it. Okay. Because I vibrationally had not shifted enough to really say, you know, I am worthy of more love than this. I won Miss USA, but I didn't claim the crown. I didn't really own it because energetically I was raised to believe that it's not okay to receive. You can't receive. You have to give and give and give, which is what I did with Wayne. And then I'd blow up. That's what I did with my old boyfriend. And then that's what I was doing in my marriage with my family and my kids. I was doing the same thing. I would give and give and give and didn't know how to receive. I didn't feel worthy. So I think Miss USA at that time, there was joy and a lot of heartache. I mean, 6 weeks before giving up my title as Miss USA, I thought I was moving to Vegas. And then Wayne all of a sudden quits calling and he dumped me on my butt. So the day before, he sends me flowers, but yet he won't take my calls. I threw them in the trash. And the day of that I'm giving up my title, my eyes are so swollen because I've been crying all day. So weird stuff, right? I mean, people think it's so glamorous, but there was a lot of emotional turmoil going on inside of me because that's where I was in my worthiness.
And it is about, you know, what other people think of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you aren't a really secure person when you go into that, I can see how it would be a lot of turmoil.
Absolutely. And for me, you know, it was that moment again where I was like, yes, I won. Like all the other accolades I'd gotten in my life, right? It's like, yes, I won. And then there's this sense of, wait, but am I feeling what I thought I was going to feel? Am I really feeling the love? Am I really feeling that fulfillment? No, I'm feeling empty, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when we keep looking for love outside of ourselves. That's what we come up with. We come up with that emptiness. So for me, that was probably the greatest gift of winning Miss USA, was coming to that understanding. Even though I didn't come to that understanding at that point, I came to that understanding eventually. I did have one real big win, though, because the Miss Universe president at that time, he'd been the president for years. He's now passed away. His name was Harold Glasser. And Harold, he's a cool guy. I mean, you know, he knew what he was doing. But I'm sitting in his office right after I won. And again, you have to remember, I had short brown hair and I talk like this because I was from Arkansas. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I'm sitting there, I've got my leg crossed and my shoe is hanging off of my foot. It's just on my toes and I'm kicking it like this. And he starts telling me I need to be more glamorous. Okay, I'm not glamorous enough. I looked at him, and this was a huge win for me. I said, I got here by being me. Don't even attempt to change me. And that was
Wow.
huge. That was huge for a
Wow.
20-year-old girl, because I'd
Yes,
had
definitely.
I'd had so many people, my mother telling me, be this, do that, it just felt like it was always there. So that was as big a win probably to say something like that to this man as anything that I could have done.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So down deep, that girl wanted to come out from the beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
So
And let me add something to that, and because I think a lot of people can relate to this. As a kid, that person wanted to come out, that empowered woman. But when my mother, who was not empowered, had her rules in her mind about what was going to help you survive, not help you thrive, but what was going to help you survive, she would suppress, act this way, do this, do that. Your dad said to do this. And so this is what we do as women. That in itself was what made me keep looking for love outside of myself. I wanted to be this empowered woman. She even said I became the mother at 7 years old. Right? But then she was like, no, but you can't be that wise person. You cannot be that wise person. You need to shut it down. And so there was always this battle that was going on inside of me. And that, again, was that anger that came out because my soul was going, you are empowered. You are this amazing, dynamic woman. And then the rules said, no, but you can't be that.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So what motivated you to start Women Leaders of Love?
It's so interesting. It was a download. I was at a class I was taking on writing an enlightened bestseller. Small course. It was about 7 years ago, I think it was. Marcy Shimoff, who is I think the all-time #1 nonfiction best-selling writer, because she did all the Chicken Soup for the Women's Souls, put those together. She was a teacher, and she's actually a friend of mine. So I was talking to her, and I said something about Women Leaders of Love, because my work had been focused on moms. I'd written a award-winning book called The Enlightened Mom, but it was now transitioning not just from mothers, but to women who are the nurturers of the planet. We are the mothers of the planet, right? And I said something about this message just came through, Women Leaders of Love, and she looked at me and she goes, if you don't go get that URL, I'm getting it. So I'm like, oh, okay, because it just kind of came out of my mouth, right? You know how you have those conversations and it's like a download? So I went and it was available. I'm like, okay, I'm grabbing it, And so I grabbed it. She goes, you're kidding, it's available. And I'm like, yeah, it's available. So I just kind of sat with it, right? I didn't really think anything about it. And then started transitioning, doing a little bit of branding, but still did not get the full gist of it. But there was a point where I started feeling that I was going to write an ebook, because I'd written several books, but I hadn't written anything about Women Leaders of Love. And so I came up and tried to write about it one day, and nothing happened. So the next day I'm meditating. I would come out of my meditation and I see this flash of light in the corner. And I knew there was a guide there. So I zeroed in on who it was. And it was Michael, again, the archangel. He said, okay, now let's go write this book. So I sat down with him, started writing Women Leaders of Love. It literally was written and edited within 1 week. It's an ebook,
Wow.
It's 20 pages long, but it's very, very powerful about what we're here to do as women, to stand in our truths and become that example for others, to thrive instead of survive. Because my mother survived. That was the suppression. I wanted to be something different than that. And that's where the guidance came from. So that's how it came about. It was a divine download, and then it just evolved. I accepted the download and said, okay, I'll receive this. I'm not sure what I'm doing with it, but I'm going to receive it. And then I allowed it to unfold.
So I'm going to have this visual forever when I think of you. I'm going to think of John Travolta as an angel.
It's so true, because Michael, to me, and I work a lot with Mother Mary. I work with Christ, who I call Jeshua, which was his real name. And, and so I work with these beautiful, loving energies, and I call them my counsel. I sit down on my couch when I meditate. They are all sitting there with me, and I never know who's going to pop in and say something. But as soon as I hear it, and it's my voice that I'm hearing in my head, but there's a knowingness that who it is that's talking to me. The messages are so profound, and to feel that again, like I said earlier, is so loving and so kind. But yes, it started with Michael, my crazy friend, who I used to see him sitting on the front of my car, like on the hood, going forward ho. And, it was just like in the movie. If you ever saw the movie, he was crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's how I experienced him before seeing the movie. So I'm like, okay, whoever wrote this movie has had some kind of relationship with Michael the Archangel, because it's so accurate.
So what is a worthiness quotient?
So this was another divine download. I try to, do everything that I do through downloads or guidance. So your worthiness quotient is how open you are to receiving love, nurturing, support, guidance, simply for who you were created to be. And you can see how this all ties in, because remember I said I didn't feel like I could be me. I had to prove my worth. I was constantly trying to win love. And then when I actually won, I still couldn't receive, right? So my mission is to help people move into alignment with the way they were created, to release the beliefs that say you have to do this, you have to do that, those good girl rules. And then by doing so, by standing in their truth, they raise their vibration, because our thoughts create our feelings and our feelings create a vibration. I'm sure you know that, and your listeners know that. And so the worthiness quotient is the more you choose unconditional love and stop the performance, the more you move into alignment with God. Now you're feeling seen, you're feeling heard, you're feeling valued, because you're treating yourself that way. So now you're feeling worthy. Now you're open to receive. And so that's when the miracles show up. That's when the gifts show up. I mean, I could tell you so many miracles. Even winning Miss USA was a miracle, because I left school, broke the cycle, and I spoke my truth and won. It's just that I couldn't fully receive it at that time, right? I couldn't claim my crown, but I did have it show up. And that's what happens so often, is we'll have goodness come in around us and we don't receive it. It's like, oh, I need to work harder, I need to do this. So your worthiness quotient is based in your vibration, and it's how much you're loving yourself and how open you are to receiving miracles and abundance. So my mission is to help people raise their worthiness quotients.
So what are the benefits, when you have a high worthiness quotient?
Well, what we now know, science tells us that whatever thoughts you have create feelings, and those feelings emit a vibration. So if you're emitting a vibration that says, I have to perform, or I have to work really hard to get life's rewards, I have to deny myself in relationships like I did, what you're actually doing is you're putting yourself at a low vibration. You're saying, I'm not enough, there's something wrong with me, that emits guilt and shame. Those are the two lowest vibrations. So if you're emitting that kind of vibration, you're going to attract things to you that feel hard. Life is going to always feel like you're working yourself to death. You're living on a hamster wheel. But when you stop that craziness and you say, I'm not going to perform anymore, I'm going to choose unconditional love, which is what I did. I started really focusing on choosing unconditional love. And part of what was happened for me is little Terry showed up. I was meditating on unconditional love one day, and all of a sudden the little girl inside of me, the 5-year-old, shows up. I'm sobbing, and I hear in my ear, get up and write this. This is the beginning of your book. And that was my first book, Message Sent. So as I became the divine parent to her and gave her permission to be who she is, I was connecting with her daily, talking to her daily, loving her daily. So now there was this energetic vibration that I was holding that said, I am worthy of being seen, heard, and valued, because that's how I was treating myself, right? And so by doing that, I now raised my worthiness and became that woman leader of love. I started attracting beautiful things because I was holding a high vibration. I started attracting high energy things, miracles. I started attracting, like when my husband died of 17 years, I had been working on passion. And this was a big thing for me about really giving myself permission to have passion in my life. He passes away from a massive heart attack. My husband now, who I didn't even know, his daughter was on my girls' dance team, and his daughter was between my two daughters. So I didn't really know him. I just say, "Hey, Charlie, how are you?" He shows up on my doorstep the day after my husband dies and said, "Let me support you through this," because his wife had killed herself 5 years prior, right? So here I am, I'm holding a vibration. I've been working on passion and love and having, this this I don't know, this fire in my life. And then it showed up. It showed up within 1 day after my husband died. I mean, 1 day. Within
Wow.
3 months. Yeah, within 3 months, Charlie and I started dating, and it was a little over a year later that we got married, and we've now been married 13 years.
Mm.
Yeah. So I had 17-year marriage. He passed away, and I've had a 13-year marriage, and hopefully he's going to be around for a while.
So I know the question that everybody has when you talk about this is how does someone begin to make that shift?
For me, it was when I made a decision to commit to unconditional love. Unconditional love is the key. And so people might say, well, what is that? That means no more performing. It means forgiving yourself of how you think you should be, and instead saying, what is my truth? For me, I look at things, and because if I am not loving myself unconditionally, I'm choosing poverty consciousness and I'm choosing punishment. So I can actually look at things in my life and say, does this feel like punishment or does this feel like love? So making that decision to choose unconditional love has been the key to everything. The beauty of this, I talk about attracting miracles, is that I've become that example for the men in my life and my children. My late husband, it was so cool because, this was completely breaking the cycle of what I had been raised in my family. The old family paradigm says, deny yourself, don't love yourself, put everyone else first, and then everybody gets mad, right? Everybody's ticked off at the other person for not filling them up. And I knew that didn't work. So I said, okay, I've got to shift this. I've got to break this cycle. So when I started doing it and committing to unconditional love, and every time I recognized something I was reacting to, go in and clean up the belief that was causing my pain and suffering, move it out and say, what is my truth? And then give myself permission to stand in it. It was scary because I didn't know how my husband was going to react. Well, lo and behold, he reacted beautifully. I mean, I'll never forget. He said to me, I feel better in my skin than I've ever felt. And I said, why? And he said, you forced me to it. And I said, how? And he said, when you quit caretaking me, meaning doing the dysfunction, he said, to find yourself. He said, it forced me to find myself. And now I feel better in my skin than I've ever felt. And I'm
Wow.
thinking, wow, that's
Great.
a
Yeah.
right? And then my husband now, Charlie, we got together, with the intention that we were standing in our truths. I mean, I remember sitting in the bathtub one night talking to him on the phone when we started dating. And he said, I tried to be the perfect husband. And he was married for 17 years. I tried to be the perfect husband for 17 years. And then she killed herself. He said, what I know now is I can only be me. And I'm thinking, yay, because I didn't have to go through that transition because my first husband, it was that old paradigm of the family and then switching it. Well, Charlie and I took a stand for really being in this new family paradigm, an enlightened family. But what was so interesting is took several years. One day he came to me downstairs. I was meditating. He'd been up in his office, and he said, because I knew you loved me. He was crying. He goes, I knew you loved me. He said, but until you taught me to love myself, I could not receive your love. And now I do.
Yes.
Think about that.
That's a profound truth. Yes.
Because this is what happens is until we choose unconditional love and love ourselves, we block the abundance that is there for us. We don't allow ourselves to be loved. I won Miss USA, but I didn't allow myself to be loved. By the end of the year, everything was gone, right? So it's like when we love ourselves and have no guilt or shame for it, but instead think of it as, I'm loving myself and I'm honoring and loving the way I was created. For me, that's putting God first. For me, it's like God is this beautiful, loving energy of the universe, and that when we say yes to loving ourselves, we're aligning with that energy, that love, and that is our greatest act of service. I mean, look at how me choosing to be an enlightened mom and then a woman leader of love, recognizing that affected the men in my life was huge. And then to see my daughters now who are 28 and 30 living the same way, who are encouraging the men in their lives to love themselves, who are standing in their truths, who are trying to have healthy, dynamic relationships, following their passions. And even when they're not, trying to be kind and gentle to themselves. You know, my youngest is in her 20s and she's trying to figure it all out, right? I mean, but to have compassion for herself and to be accepting of her journey is huge.
Yeah.
To be able to know that you are being an example of thriving instead of surviving, what a gift that you give to yourself and to those you care about and love. And you don't have to have kids. You don't have to have a partner. It can be your friends. It can be your siblings. It can be whatever. It can be your coworkers. It just knowing that you can be that is tremendous.
Definitely. So you have a quiz for people to take to determine their worthiness quotient.
Yeah, I do.
And where can they find that?
Yes.
Yes, where can
So
they
the
find
quiz is broken down into different areas like relationships, intimacy, it's miracles, money. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna answer the questions. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes, and you're going to get a clear picture of where you've owned your worth in each aspect of your life, as well as your overall worthiness quotient. Because we usually have one area where feel a little bit more worthy and other areas that we don't. So what it's going to do is it's going to show you this. It's going to give you a breakdown and then some steps for you to really start raising your worthiness quotient. So you can get it or take it at terribritt.com/quiz. So it's just terribritt.com/quiz. As you see my name right there, terribritt.com/quiz, and you can take it there. I also want to share with you, because I've talked about the Women Leaders of Love ebook, for those of you women who, and even the men, if anybody's listening or watching, if you want to grab this to see this download that I got and really get an understanding, and easy read. I call it a toilet bowl read, right? That you can sit on the toilet and read it, but you might want to read it again. But it's got the quiz link. It's got my masterclass, free masterclass in there, the worthiness quotient, that you can really hear the stories and the miracles that showed up and what I did to shift the consciousness. Because I think it's really important to understand that. I had this one woman, I shared it in a live talk, and she says, I've never had anybody explain energy to me that way. And she was a yoga teacher. She said, I cannot wait to go and explain this to people because it's so easy to understand when you teach it this way. So that's all in there. It's just terribritt.com/worthy. But to get the ebook, and then you'll get 3 free meditations. It's all free. Go to terribritt.com/leaders.
Okay, great. And in case you forget that, it's also posted on the Soulfire Radio website under guests. Scroll down to Terry's name, and both of her gifts are also posted there. So
great. Thank you.
You can link to those.
Yeah.
So why is it so important, especially today, for women to recognize their worthiness and assume leadership roles?
What I've seen in my own life, I mean, you've heard how I shifted and it affected my family and my husband's and my kids. We are in a state of lack in our culture. This is one reason why there's so much division, you against me, because people are in this state of not receiving. If you look at someone who's in a peaceful state, who is receptive and feels loved and nurtured, they're not blaming people around them, right? They're looking at everybody with compassion and kindness. I mean, I'm not talking about somebody who makes a ton of money, who's killing themselves. I'm talking about somebody who feels at peace, who feels they're not alone, who feels that every need can be met. I mean, you're looking at someone like that. That person is not going to be pointing fingers. When we look at everybody who is pointing fingers, it's because they're in lack. Lack is based in a lack of worthiness. Okay. If you feel worthy, you're not going to be in lack. You're going to be in a state of trust. And in that state of trust, you're going to be more peaceful, more passionate, more playful. You're going to feel more fulfilled. Your relationships are going to be better. But right now, we are seeing a mirror from the outer world to what's going on in our inner world. We are in lack. And it's up to us to change this. If we want this outer crap to change, we gotta have to make the decision to heal. We have to make the decision to say, you know what? It's time for me to look at myself. It's time for me to learn some tools. It's time for me to pay attention to my outer world and how I'm reacting, and make it my mission to go within and love myself unconditionally, so I truly become the change I want to see in the world. This is why it's so important that we become women leaders of love and raise our worthiness quotient so we thrive and become that example for others.
Yes, great. So this is kind of an off-topic question, but
Okay.
I've been asking everybody for a while now. So what has surprised you most about life so far?
What has surprised me about? I think it would probably be that life is really fun when it's an adventure. I was a control freak for most of my life, in my younger days, and I always wanted to know what was around the corner and had to control that. I didn't understand what it meant to be on this grand adventure. For me now, I understand that I don't need to know what's around the corner. I can set my intentions. I can put my heart out there, what I would like to create, but I can tell you that no matter if it's actually created or something else comes up, whatever it is, it's always exactly what is needed in that moment. So I think that's it. It would just be, I love adventure, and I realize how much I love adventure in every aspect of my life. I hear a lot of people saying, well, I can't go on an adventure right now because the travel is so restricted. I'm like, go on an adventure to your heart. Go on an adventure, to spirit. Let the universe, support you and be on this grand. I mean, I've had so many crazy experiences through spirit that it's like when I don't have them, I'm like, oh, I'm needing a new aha or something, because it's just so much fun to have that experience.
Yes, definitely.
You agree? Do you have that? I know.
Yes,
I
I definitely do agree on that.
Yeah. I noticed in your opening you talked about adventure, and I thought, yeah, I can completely relate.
Yes. So if you could leave listeners with one thought from today's show, what would you want that to be?
Stop the performance and choose unconditional love. Pay attention to where you're performing. If you are trying to win other people's love and approval, if you're trying to prove your worth, check in with your mind chatter and say, I don't do punishment anymore. I don't choose poverty consciousness. I choose love, and I'm stopping the performance. That is where you'll see the shift.
Okay, great. And I know you already said it, but for just again, how can people connect and find out more about what you're doing and Women Leaders of Love?
So I would really get my Worthiness Quotient Breakthrough Bundle, which is my Women Leaders of Love ebook with 3 guided meditations to help you get a clear picture of what you're here to do is for purpose and standing in your truth. So that's terrybritt.com/leaders. In that, you'll find my quiz link. You'll find the masterclass link. You'll even find my Worthiness Quotient digital program link. So if you want to check into that, you can do that. And if you don't want to get that ebook and everything, just go take the quiz, terrybritt.com/quiz, or just go to terrybritt.com and see what we're doing. We also have on Wednesdays on Facebook on Women Leaders of Love, we have our Women Leaders of Love Own Your Worth Wednesdays, where we come in and I take questions, we do healing. It's really fun for women to come together and be supported.
Great. So thank you so much for being here today and
Thank
talking
you.
about this. I feel like it's just a really important topic and something we need to do as women.
We do. And we do. And I think more than ever, we really need to claim this power within us, that we have the power to help make the shift on the planet that we're needing right now, because we are the nurturers. But people see that we as nurturers don't receive, and that's why nobody's receiving. But when we say, yes, it's okay to receive and love myself unconditionally, we change the paradigm.
Yes. So again, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And I'd like to thank the listeners for being here today. I have another great show planned for next week. Next week, my guest will be Karen Ray. And Karen is the founder of Fave Lifestyles, which is another great community that nurtures women and helps them to shine. So a little different focus than what Terry's doing. So be sure to tune in next Tuesday. That'll be already September 7th at 3 p.m. And I'm just going to say bye for now. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Soul Fire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soul Fire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.